let's just introduce the players as we get this little process started. So let's start off with Logan here. Logan, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're doing.
I'm Logan Cooper. I'm your son. A couple weeks ago now, maybe a month ago, we kicked off what you might call pre-production development on a game that I'm going to try to push through to completion called Pigs with Lasers. And you had an idea to document the whole development process in both the form of a devlog, which we'll do at a later date, and also these podcasts. So maybe we come on and talk about aspects of the game and what's going on with it and stuff like that. So this is kind of that.
Okay, and I'm Power Cube. I am his dad. My thought process behind this is Logan started wanting to ramp up actually building a game from beginning to end. As he started talking about it, I realized that I'm personally a serial entrepreneur. I've started and built and sold several software companies. And so while I don't know anything about the gaming industry, it's pretty similar to what I've done for a living. And so I thought it would be a great opportunity as Logan explained all the different aspects of what goes into a successful game from his perspective of being a video game producer previously at Hi-Res Studios. It kind of made me realize that this would be a great opportunity to share a lot of information about everything that goes into creating a game, a successful game. Because Logan's pointed out to me how many games he's found out there that are just awesome games, but they were built by great coders who had no idea what to do with it once they built it. So we hope to show everybody on this podcast the entire process, everything that's not only the fun creative part of it, but all the drudgery behind starting a company, which is kind of my specialty. So in these first few podcasts, I know we'll be talking a lot about just the first steps that you go through to create a company. And then as we move forward to the progression of these episodes, get through kind of the talking through how we arrived at the initial idea and what it is, and then all the formation of the corporation and all of the banking stuff that has to be done and the social media and just all of that crazy stuff. As we kind of get through all that, simultaneously, that's where Logan will be digging in a lot deeper with some of our other teammates in trying to show how we develop the characters, the character arcs, the visual effects, the music, the game engine itself, and all of those aspects. So that's kind of how we'll move through this. Keith, I want to give you a shot to kind of jump in.
All right, so my name's Keith York, and I work as a sort of creative consultant on the project. Power Cube and I met on Reddit after I had worked on a creative project of my own, a book. He had gotten in contact with me because he was interested in doing his own project, which we aren't going to discuss here, and we've been working on that for several months now. And as we've developed a relationship and kind of bounced our creative ideas back and forth, when Logan came to him with this idea for this video game production, he came to me and asked if I'd like to be involved as kind of like a creative consultant to come up with ideas. So I'm kind of an idea guy for the project. I don't know anything about making video games. I'm just interested in the project from the sense of, like, I love playing video games. I don't know anything about them. Watching my ideas come to life in a way that the artistic way it has, like, in the project so far has been really exciting for me. We can talk about that later. So that's about where I am in the project. So I'm just stoked to be here, and I have a little bit of podcast experience. I'm here to kind of help guide things along as we kind of traverse the unknown terrain of talking about what it means to start up a small video game production company.
Cool. Hey, one thing I do want to give a shout out. So anybody that does watch this, please hit the like button and the share button. We'll figure out where we're supposed to do that as we go forward with this. I also don't want Keith to undersell himself, so down in the comments, you'll also find a link to where you can buy Keith's book or read about it if you're interested. So while I am a geek at heart, and I always say I'm a recovering geek because no one lets me code anymore, but these kind of late stage adventures I'm going on with my son and Keith and others are all about artistic endeavors. For me, it's a lot of fun. That's how I got to know Keith. He's a creative writer, and so I was really kind of drawn to him for another project that I've got going on that Keith and I are working on, a couple of screenplays and a graphic novel together. And so as Logan got going on this idea, Keith got involved, and as we get into the next few episodes, you'll meet some of the other team members.
Yeah, I mean, we've got two other guys working on this with us. Reed is my best friend. He's been my best friend since pre-K. We've known each other our whole lives. He will probably be on here at some point. He is a finance guru. He's worked in the corporate finance world for several years now. He's looking for something a little more, I don't know, exciting or something a little more interesting to see if he can take a stab at that. It just so happens that our lives worked out in the way that we were both kind of looking for the same thing at the same time, and we just said, dude, why don't we do this? So we started working on it together. He's never developed the game, but he's played around with Unity. He's played around with different modeling software. He's not necessarily an artistic person, but he's open to learning. So I said, hey man, like, I want to start this project. Like, I want you to help me on it, and we're both just going to figure out how to do it. And so Reed's been really helpful in the ideation and design and early prototyping phases. So that's cool. Jeremy is another one of your creative associates that you managed to find over the internet. Dude's just super smart, and we just got connected pretty recently and started asking him, you know, are you interested in helping out? Like, what do you think you want to do? And he just started knocking stuff out of the park, 3D modeling, throwing music tracks. It was really impressive. So he's going to be helping out on hopefully music, audio, VFX, modeling stuff, whatever he's comfortable contributing, right? This is all just going to be kind of like a communal team process of learning and figuring out how to do this.
Well, I think the cool thing is that we all bring something different, and that's an important thing I want our viewers to understand about building this. And I always use this really crude euphemism, which is in building companies, which is I want to have a slice of the watermelon, not the whole fucking grape. Okay? To me, that's just a really impactful statement because so many people get into this and they think it's their idea, it's their thing. And they end up driving so much of their vision, and then it gets tunnel vision. They're so worried about, you know, well, this thing could make so much money, and it's going to be my money. And that's not the way to approach these things. They're artistic endeavors. And you know what? Every day we get up and we live life, we're going on an adventure, right? And so I learned a long time ago, when you get up, you only get so many days on this planet. Make sure you're having a good time. You know, so I'm having a blast working with you, putting this team together. You end up with a situation that everybody's invested and excited because they're, you know, like you said, Keith, you write these cute little doodles and write up like a weapon or something, and then you put that into our Discord server, and the next thing you know, Reed's jumped on it and added some flavor to it, and then Jeremy jumps in and does a blender, you know, of it. So it's just so fun that so far, our team so far is just 5 people with very unique, diverse backgrounds. Business entrepreneur guy, artistic writer, creative idea guy, video game development guy. Logan undersold himself. He has degrees in computer science and in video game design and has multiple years of experience now at a large studio as a producer. You know, ultimately, the fun thing is getting everybody involved when you do these projects, and make sure, my advice to anybody starting a company is don't get stingy with your equity. Share it around. Make sure that it's a win for everybody. If everybody wins, then it's great and it's fun. It sure is not fun to be at the end of the game, having shared the pain and the heartache and the celebrations and everything together and have one person walk away with all of the success. That's just not the way life should work. So anyway, I'm excited about it. It's great having everybody involved. I do want to give a shout out to Jeremy. I didn't meet Jeremy through Reddit like I did Keith, but I met him through the internet, and anybody that's interested, I'll have a link below in the comments as well to a really cool video that is how I met Jeremy. I actually was trying to get people to,
Please don't post that video.
I'm posting that video. So I wanted to get somebody to help do a video for me and write a song to give my wife for my anniversary and for our anniversary. And I don't know anything about music, but I was able to get Logan and his old garage band back together that included Reed. And they wrote a song to some lyrics I wrote, and then I hired Jeremy through an online contest that I ran on Freelancer to find somebody that could actually make a music video, and he like crushed it. It's so good. You'll feel come on. Anyway, so we'll post that.
At the end. Come on, man. Come on. Bon Jovi shows up.
Bon Jovi sort of kind of shows up, yeah. So
I mean, how we want to start this off?
I don't know. It's down there in the comments. Right. All 4 subscribers will see it. Okay, so there you go. Anyway, so let's get into the beginning of kind of Pigs with Lasers, which I think is, you know, this is kind of now the first step, right? So So when Logan came to me saying, Dad, I'm 26 years old. I had a passion to build video games and I'm stuck in corporate America, not actually writing the video games and doing a part of a video game. And I want to do the whole thing. And luckily, at least I'm in a position in life that I was able to help you out and give you a place to stretch your legs and do it. But I'd stress to everybody, you know, the most important thing to actually building something incredible is starting. Because everybody always has an excuse of why they don't do it, why they don't start writing that great American novel, why they don't start recording a song or whatever it may be. Or a podcast. Yeah. Just don't let anything stop you. And clearly the number one thing that stops a lot of people is money. But there's a million ways around these. And I think Logan's starting to see that and realize that now that, you know, when you're inside of a big studio, there's a lot of money, because the money's already been made from the first games that have come out. And it's a rolling train. And starting a company, it's a brick, and you all have to get behind it and push that block of granite up the side of the hill. And the more people pushing it, easier it gets. So be open, bring in people, be willing to be stupid, be willing to say, I don't know how to do something, and find somebody that does. And before you know it, the team just starts kind of gelling on its own. But once you kind of decide you're going to do this, our first argument, I think, was about what's the name of the company, right?
Was it?
I don't know. What do you think the first one was?
How do we do it? And I was like, well, I need narrative. I can't just build a game based on an idea. And I threw that around just to get you off my back. And then instead of being like, oh, all right, you were just like, well, I know a writer.
No, you're still.
I'll set up a Zoom call with us tomorrow. And then we ended up in a Zoom call with Keith and started moving forward. But, you know.
Yeah. So my only limitation is that the name of the company had to have Lizardsniffer in it, because that
was another one. Yeah.
That's just a stupid name that my wife and I came up with to torture our oldest child, our daughter, 25 years ago, because she was going to competitions at big horse shows, and all of the other snobby horse people had all these fancy Richie farm names. You know, we're from Rich Dover dressage team or whatever. And so she was always like, why can't we have something like that? So we just randomly came up with the name Lizardsniffer using Dr. Poopy Pants name generator, and which was some kid's book, and came up with Lizardsniffer, said boom, that's it. And ever since then, for 25 years, we've got that on the front of our equestrian bed and breakfast, and we've named everything. We've got lizards everywhere. So anyway, it just had to have Lizardsniffer in it. So it's Lizardsniffer Studios. You can't hit the website just yet, because those are all of those first steps that we have to do. We've got the LLC set up, which is a very simple thing. And I also want to stress, as people hopefully start watching these down the road, I'm sure people get interested in the podcast, they'll go back and watch from the beginning. It's going to be really valuable to you guys, not only I think to hear the steps we go through, but we can't get into every detail on these podcasts. So it would be great if you have any questions about details of how to do something, put them in the comments, and we'll try to either get back to you directly, and or if it's you think it's a broad enough and relevant enough question, we'll address it in the next podcast. But setting up an LLC, a limited liability corporation, is a very, very easy thing to do. It does cost a little bit of money, so depending on what your budget is, you may forego that step. But I'm gonna try and tell you, and I'm gonna try and lead this team through how to do and build a company without busting the bank. There's a lot of great ways to do it. LLC is about $100, so it's not a lot, but to some people that's a whole lot of money. But it is the right way to get started. Once you've set up your LLC, then everything else becomes available to you to do. You can get your bank account set up. Once you've set up your bank account, suddenly you've got the ability now to go and set up your website, get your domains. All of those things take a little bit of time. So again, we haven't even really gotten started on those. We're through the banking step right now, waiting on some banking approvals. Yeah. And then I'll fund the account, and then we'll be off to the races. And so at that point in time, Logan and Reed right now are working through the high-level project plan. Yeah. That they'll need to present to me that kind of shows, here's our objectives, in digestible chunks, whether that be, the core gameplay. By here we've created all the character designs, here we've created the art, and then all these other things I know nothing about, but I don't even know all the words that they use, but they've got all their different steps they have to go through to get to a viable game. And so we're going to lay that all out, including getting to, private beta and getting all the way through the steps that you're really comfortable, how to build your social media around it. And so anyway, we expect it to be a very in-depth and hopefully educational podcast for everybody. We'll try to continue, as I said, along the way to answer as many questions as we can. So let's hop back real quick now to why pigs with lasers.
So I'll say my life up to this point has been a series of inflating my own ego and then having it quickly and swiftly deflated by the world and everything around me. So when I was back in college in 2015, 2016, maybe even a little bit before that in 2014, I was taking classes with other game design students in the Southern Polytechnic State University's game design and development program. And these were my friends, and we were all in these classes making games, learning to use Unity, learning scripting and basic programming skills and stuff like that. A lot of the times in these game development classes, the objective of the class was basically just make a game, right? The class is going to be about mobile development or educational and serious game development. It would have all these different topics for each class, and then basically you would learn about what's special about that topic and make a game for that topic. I forget exactly which class this was in, but in one of the classes, there was a team. I don't even remember the students that were in the team, but I remember their project because it was so absurd, and it was called Pigs with Lasers. I believe that's what they called it. It was just a blank, empty Unity scene with a default world plane, a couple of untextured cubes, and a pig model that they had gotten for free off of the Unity asset store. And they had essentially hooked up player movement to this pig model so that they could walk around the scene with it. I don't even honestly remember if it was animated. It was a really, really bad looking model. And when they pressed the space bar, you jumped, I believe. And when they pressed maybe mouse click or another button, you shot two lasers out of his eyes. And I think they eventually maybe added a enemy character right into the scene. But my point is, it was a very low, what I saw as a low effort project for the program. I was doing doing as much as I could to learn the animation subsystems and the different scripting things that you could do in Unity. And I was trying to build like a top-down action RPG for mobile platforms that I was going to release on the App Store. And I'm looking at their projects and I'm going, guys, what the hell are you doing? This looks awful. Like, why are you, like, come on, if you're in this program, like, aren't you at least going to try? Like, do you not want to be a game developer? I was very big-headed.
I wouldn't call that big-headed.
I wouldn't, but you remember me ranting. Like, that
ranting about it.
I would come home on breaks and I'd be like, I can't believe this team is in this class, and I can't believe every week they come in with an update on the game, and it's like, they are doing the most basic stuff. It's not even... And it was just frustrating because it was watching a couple of lazy college students not really take the thing seriously that I really cared about. But, not saying that my stuff is the greatest thing that's ever existed. Looking back on it, my stuff was pretty jank as well. I just thought I was better. But I was continually frustrated by this team that didn't have a very good project. And at the end of the semester, I believe they ended up getting like an A or a B. And that really frustrated me because I was like, are you kidding me? I worked so hard on my thing. And yeah, I got an A, but this other team that did the absolute bare minimum, and it looks like crap, and it's not even a real game, also got an A. And it just, you remember, it irked me to no end. And so Pigs with Lasers became like a meme for us, where like, it just meant a project where they have like an idea, a concept, a catchy tagline, a funny idea for a game, but then you never execute on it. You never execute on it. It's not because you don't want to do the work or whatever the reason is. And so, recently, as I've come to stay here on the farm and I've been trying to figure out what I want to do with my life post studio life, big studio life, and what I want to do with my career, and the thought of like, well, if I'm going to make games, I need to take a really good, real stab at making a game myself. Somehow Pigs with Lasers came up in one of our conversations, and you were like, well, why don't you make Pigs with Lasers? That's a great idea. It's a great catchy name. Why don't you really make that game? And I'm like, no, it's not, I can't just make Pigs with Lasers. Pigs with Lasers isn't a game idea. It's just pigs. It's just 3 words. It's not a game idea. And you said, well, what do you need to make it a game idea? And I said, well, I need a narrative. I need world building. I need a story. And you said, well, guess what? I know a guy.
Exactly. And
that's
in
how we met
walks
Keith.
Keith.
And then you set a Zoom call up with Keith, and at this point I'm frustrated because I'm like, he's not letting this go, and I don't want to make pigs with lasers. And then I start talking about it with my friend Reed, and I'm like, well, if I'm going to make this game, here's my initial, well, at the same time I'm thinking, well, if I am going to make a game, what game do I want to make? And so I'm jotting down all these design notes of all these different games that I might want to make, and pigs with lasers in the back of my head, and I'm like, but I'm kind of thinking about ideas for pigs with lasers just to show you. And then I talk about it with Reed one day while I'm driving from Atlanta out here. He comes up with the perfect idea. He brings up a game from like 20 years ago that we haven't played since we were kids, but we loved it so much. It's a super fun game called Team Buddies. I've never heard anyone else talk about it, but when I looked it up, everyone was like, oh my God, I loved this game, like 5 stars. I can't find it anywhere. They never made a Team Buddies 2. I've never seen another game that uses the same kind of crafting mechanic as that. And I was like, oh, that's it. Dang it. And I just immediately knew, like, that's it. And so Reed and I immediately started talking about, okay, well, what does this game look like? What kind of gameplay would it be? And that's when I started really actually getting excited about the idea. And it went from being this stupid, silly idea of just pigs with lasers to, oh, this is a game that has this sort of gameplay, this sort of game mode structure, this sort of weapon system and crafting system, and it's layered on top of that with an aesthetic of pigs with lasers. Cartoon pigs with 1960s, 1950s sci-fi aesthetic, and I was like, that is a game idea, right? So that took a goofy half idea into a fully formed kind of like idea that you can then take into a design.
But
right,
it's important though for the viewers to realize that and not gloss over the fact that, as you said, there was a name, right?
Yeah.
Pigs with lasers.
Right.
Nothing else about it, just pigs with lasers. And your point is, that's not a game. Okay, now you kind of run through where your mind as a game developer immediately went as to, if I was going to make a game called Pigs with Lasers, what would it do? How would it work? So you immediately went to the gameplay side. But I think it's important for game developers to realize that there's such an artistic piece to this. And that's where Keith came in. We got on that first conference call, the 3 of us, and by the end of it, my God, I mean, I don't think anybody smoked anything funny before or after that, but boy, I'll tell you what, I was writing up signs afterward, big things afterwards, because like our first concept, and I want people to understand what brainstorming is, because brainstorming can only be done in a group. It can't be done with just one person with the idea. You have to have people throwing out ideas, and some of them are so freaking stupid that you laugh at them. But as a team, you're kind of giggling and playing off at each other, and you get there. I mean, I'll go back to the one that I became in love with the initial concept that came into my head. The idea was in my mind was, and I'm not a video game player, by the way. I quit back when I think it was 16-bit. So, but I like the idea of, I see mobile games and I see people play them in very small spurts in airports or used to pre-COVID. But I thought, well, hey, everybody's always trying to monetize those mobile games. What if instead of trying to create a mobile game that's going to make money, you use the mobile game as your advertising content, because essentially you let everybody get in and play. And the idea was almost Fight Club. In my mind, it was Fight Club meets Animal Farm, right? And we went down this whole path of evolving animals and Chi Pigvera and just the stupidest shit now that when you look back on it. But man, we were like just riffing. We were just riffing before it settled into something a little, I don't know how pigs with lasers can be rational, but something a little more rational.
Yeah, for sure.
Keith, talk about what your first thoughts were when you heard pigs with lasers and what you thought about it.
Well, you came to me and you're like, do you want to work on this like game idea about pigs with lasers? And my initial thought was like, that sounds awesome. So like as soon as I got on the conference call, like, what am I talking about? It was like, you're like, oh, it was this really stupid idea called pigs with lasers. And I'm like, I'm just going to interject right now. Like pigs with lasers can, like, as a low level concept, sounds dope. Like I would download pigs with lasers like in a second. And that's why I was like, that sounds amazing. And then Power Cube comes on. He's like, all right, we've got this farmer, and this farmer's coming in, and he's like pulling out, animals to eat, and they're gonna rise up in this like revolution. And we were coming up with all these story ideas. And I was like, all right, cool, man. So like, I'm going to be the pig character. And as a creative writer, I'm like trying to get inside the mind of the pig. And I'm like, all right, so what's my motive to destroy the farmer? And I'm trying to build like a concept out of that. So we're all fighting for like weird different things coming from our backgrounds. But I was just really stoked on the idea just because like, pigs with lasers, man. It's stupid, but like I would totally play a game if I was just a pig shooting things with lasers. Give me a plot, even better.
The other thing that's funny is as we figure out each other's capabilities, right? I know you as a writer, right? And so you and I are working on this other writing project, and along the way we've obviously become friends, personal friends, and started texting each other. And so next thing I know, just in your like boredom time, you're married with a couple of young kids, and so there's not a lot of boredom time, but every once in a while when you have a moment, you'd send me like a really stupid, weird doodle, right? And but they were funny and they were good, and I was like, wow, I didn't know you were an artist, and you're like, oh yeah, I just did doodles. And so I didn't even really think about that again until suddenly now we're talking, we're in our Discord server, and everybody's throwing out like weapons ideas and stuff, and the next thing I know, here comes Keith in with like these little write-ups of, with little doodles of the the pig using the baconator or whatever they were, and it was like, this is how you start getting it, because then when Jeremy comes in, who's the real VFX guy, the real Blender genius, he comes in and is able to take your doodles and just like that have a visualization, turn it into something. So it's really kind of cool to see all those pieces come together.
I am like so impressed with the skill level of like the object creation, because a couple of these concept ideas I threw onto Discord, and I felt like 10 minutes later there was like a 3D rendering of my idea just on there. This is as far as like work to payoff ratio, it's fantastic. I draw something and it comes to life like instantly. I'm like, this is great. Like, this is way better than like collecting a paycheck, because like my artistic like stupid trap like becomes so much better.
Yeah. So anyway, I think we can close down the brainstorming session. But it's important, guys. Don't go in your own cocoon. Don't, Logan said it before. Sometimes your ego gets a little bit big when things are going good for you. My rule in life is ride life like a wave. That's all it is. There's highs and there's lows. I also say it's a lot like a heartbeat. 95% of life is boring as shit. Just a flat line. You get up today, you did the same thing you did yesterday, nothing changes. It's like the 5% that makes life worthwhile. And there's a bunch of high peaks and a bunch of lows too. You just got to kind of ride them. When things are going your way, don't get too cocky about it. And when things get shitty, don't get too down. Know that it's going to come back up. So anyway, when you get too much in your own head, you're going to believe your own press, because your own thoughts are the only thing you're hearing. You got to get out there and talk to other people. You got to collaborate, and that's where the really amazing things come out of. I'm hoping Pigs with Lasers is going to be as amazing to everybody else as it sounds to us when we giggle about it. So anyway, now you've moved well beyond Pig Guevara, and we no longer have a magic spider, so nobody has to worry about the magic spider at the Fight Club anymore. Although I would love to hear comments on this idea so you can convince him for the next game that it makes sense to create a mobile game where you're essentially pre-building, if you will, for 6 months while you're waiting for the console game or the PC game to come out. You're actually learning and building your character through battles, one-on-one battles, arena battles, whatnot, and collecting up loot and getting yourself ready. And then ultimately, when the full console game comes out, you're already very familiar with the backstory. You've already built your character, and you basically open up your console game, and boom, there's your already pre-built character. And we didn't study anything on the mobile game. He doesn't like that because you don't get to make money. But like I said, it's not about money. It's about having fun.
Well, typically today I'll say that mobile games are traditionally built entirely for mobile. There are certainly ports from PC and console games to mobile, but there are companies that make a lot of money off of mobile games exclusively. So I don't know if it necessarily makes 100% like total sense to essentially build a version of the game for mobile without intending on monetizing it or supporting it long term.
But Nestle makes a lot of money off of bottled water. Are you suggesting that we shouldn't have water be free too?
I mean,
Just saying. The point is, be open to all of those concepts.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the agreement was, as you figured out how you want your game to work, it's really going to work more. It's going to work better as a PC game or console game. Is that where you're aiming?
I think the traditional development path of indie development path of developing the core platform first, this one being PC with gamepad support, making sure it works really well, it's really fun there. And then at that point, if you have a game that's working well, it's really fun, people are enjoying it, they're giving you good feedback on it, you can think, okay, how long is it going to take to release this game? Does it make sense for me to do a mobile version? What's my goal with the mobile version, as you said? If my goal is to get people interested in the console PC version, it could work, right? You could potentially put some sort of demo out on mobile that has a call to action that drives people, but you would have to have that planned out, and the mobile version would have to be, I guess, just a vertical slice of your main game. And at that point, you're weighing the pros and cons of, do I take the time to develop a full mobile UI and mobile input system for this mobile vertical slice, as well as the App Store pages, all the marketing that goes along with that? Do I think that is going to be valuable enough as a demo driver, rather than just getting the main game done and out on Steam as fast as possible?
Okay, just remember, us that aren't game guys, we're gonna need to be challenge you on what I call acronym checks or just terminology. Just explain it, because a lot of these things are things you've had to explain to me. But what's a vertical slice?
It's a software engineering term that is just a minimum slice of a product. So a collection of the main features of the product in a small encapsulated demo, basically, to prove functionality out.
Minimum, like what I would call in my enterprise software world, a minimum viable product?
I would say the difference between a minimum viable product and a vertical slice is that the minimum viable product is the absolute minimum that you can have in the product to release it out into the public.
Yep.
A vertical slice is more like, this is a proof of concept of these systems working together in this way, right? So I might build out a level of my game, right?
Mm-hmm.
If my game's going to have 20 levels, I may build out one level really, really good to prove out the character designs,
Gotcha.
to prove out the animation, to prove out the programming, the gameplay, and make sure that everything feels and looks exactly how I want it to be.
The engine work.
Right. The game engine itself is Unity, right? And then you build your scripts and your systems on top of that. So making sure that everything works the way you designed it and the way you implemented it. And then once you have that demo level, let's call it just a demo level or a vertical slice, you can then say, you can shop that out to publishers. You can say, hey, I built this thing. I want to build more of it. Will you give me funding? You can continue to develop it yourself and just build more levels and eventually release it yourself as an independent publisher. You can, sell it to someone.
Okay, so translating that to my world, right? Because I'm enterprise software, right? That's corporation, business, B2B type software. What you're really saying, and I'm going to translate to the business side for the viewers, is that we talked early on, probably the biggest impediment to getting anywhere is money, right? If you don't have access to capital, it's very difficult. So you have to pick and choose where you're going to put your pennies. One of the things you have to do is figure out, if you don't have capital and you're going to need capital, how far do you have to get to get something you can show to somebody before they're going to give it to you? Bad analogy, but I'm the bad analogy guy. It's a hooker, right? A prostitute on the street, right? If she's wearing a jumpsuit standing on the corner, there's no reason the guy's going to pull over and roll his window down, right? But if she's standing there in a hot little mini skirt and she's looking really cute and he's looking for it, he's going to pull over and roll his window down. Bad analogy maybe, but the point is you got to have something to sell, guys. So what you're saying here is basically doing the work that doesn't really take more than mental cycles, creative cycles, and long hours and lots of coffee to create this thing that you then can say, here's what I'm doing. Now, on the business side, I do something similar in that, we create a very detailed business plan for a company we want to build. We've probably prototyped the basis of the software, same thing to some degree, so that we could literally go and say to investors, hey, here's the company we're going to build. Here's the market we're going to approach. Here's what you can expect that we would, how we would ramp our revenues. Here's how we'd spend the money you're going to give us, because we're going to need it to build out this, and this, and this. So it's the same concept, probably on a different level. Like at a business level, I could be raising tens of millions of dollars to do something. You guys here are raising, what would you say in an indie game once somebody got to that vertical slice where they would need from a capital?
It's different because you're talking about building an enterprise software solution or business that is going to inherently generate money or save money or do something for whoever's buying it that's going to help them do what they're doing more cost effectively. So you're inherently building a product that generates value. Not saying that video games don't generate value, but video games are an entertainment product. So
entertainment value.
It's entertainment value. It's not as tangible. So it's a lot because it's a creative medium and you have to take risks in a creative medium. Investors can be a lot more wary. You can't just go to them with a business plan even. You can't just go to them and be like, I want to make a game that's like this. I think it'll hit these target markets. That's a great first step. But even then, they're going to be like, well, have you made any games? What does it look like? Are you a competent developer? Who's going to build, right? They're going to ask a lot of questions, and you're going to need to be able to take this and show them like, hey, I know what I'm doing. I want to build this game, or I have people who know what they're doing. I want to manage this team to build this game, right? That's the starting point for video games comes from a place of some people get together and they say, we really want to make this game because we want to play it, right? Not because we want to make, some people get together and say we want to make money off of it, but I would say most indie game developers who are passionate about video games and just want to create them get together and they say, we want to make this really cool, fun experience because I want to play it, and I think other people would want to play it too. So you get together and you prototype and you ideate and you design and you create this little thing, and you may not have any intentions of releasing, like having that be a popular game or continuing the development throughout the years. But if you get to a point where you've made this thing that you're proud of, even if it's small, but it's fun and it's cool, and other people are showing interest in it, and you think, hey, I can take this to the next level, like the next step at that point is to go develop a business plan, say, how would I actually take this thing to market? Like you were talking about a real business plan, say, what's my target audience? How am I going to penetrate that target audience? Like, what are the steps I need to take to get there? What do I need to continue development on in order to make this competitive with other games? And then you take that and you say, okay, I need to fund this thing. I need to be able to pay myself to be able to pay the bills and to be able to buy assets and music and whatnot. And you can either fund that yourself, which some people are lucky enough to be able to do, or you can go to a publisher and you can say, hey, I have this great demo that's attracted this much attention, and I have a great business plan for how I'm going to expand it and take it into the market. And if you convince that publisher to sign on, then that publisher generally will take over marketing. They'll kind of help you with social media. They'll help you with merchandising. They'll help you with getting to different events and stuff to get your game out there. They're going to help you kind of amplify your voice in ways that you may not know how to do as a traditional developer, somebody who's more into programming or even just art. That's kind of what a publisher is there to do, is to get you on all the different store platforms and get you looking professional and really polished. And they're going to get you on Kickstarter to try to get you a Kickstarter for indie publishers.
You're going where I wanted you to go.
Indie publishers are basically going to help you be the most polished version of your game as possible. They're going to sit there and they're going to make your social media profiles look great. They're going to help you start a Kickstarter and tell you what the best ways to do it. They're going to give you feedback on all the different things you're doing. They're going to be that business partner that you may not have as a traditional developer. If you're lucky enough to have somebody on your team as an indie developer who's been through the trials and tribulations of releasing games and promoting them on different storefronts and they have connections, then you may not need a publisher. I think most people, in most cases, are going to need a publisher. Depending on the game and the deal and the size and the confidence of the publisher in that product, they're going to offer you something different. And it's going to be up to you to kind of shop around and make sure that you're getting like a fair and reasonable deal for the kind of work that you're going to be doing. But I've heard of publishers offering, $50,000, $100,000, depending on, 30,000, they could offer you a couple thousand, right? If they think you've got a really small scope game and they just want to help you get it out there, maybe they're not a super large publisher in the first place, right?
But that's with some type of royalty and ongoing
right.
revenue.
And so the idea is that you rev share with them after or whatever you end up making the deal.
Yeah,
but the idea is that's how you get your initial funding to be able to pay the bills and to either purchase or develop assets throughout your game development process to be able to get your indie game from an idea to actually released. Whether or not that game ends up being successful, who knows? Indie games, there are amazing indie games out there that people just never see, right? And you see postmortems and dev blogs all the time from really passionate game developers who have a great idea and they execute on that idea, and they may have made half a dozen games and none of them were successes.
Mm-hmm.
And they're doing it in their spare time. Maybe they have a day job and they're just grinding, trying to figure out what the secret sauce is to getting a game out there, getting it marketed correctly, and getting it picked up by enough people to finally start making some money off of it. And the lucky ones who are able to make really good products and eventually make it their full-time career can then form, I guess, a partnership with either, their team or their publisher and just be able to pay the bills by developing these small indie titles, which they have a lot of creative control over, releasing it onto different platforms and hopefully making enough money off of that too.
I think the important thing in there was that you basically stripped away the whole concept that I had of how I've always built companies, because I'm building a different type of company. Your point was very valid. I'm building a business application. My business cases are very clear cut,
right.
Whereas yours is artistic. Yours is more in line with Keith, right? As a novelist, you're exercising an artistic creation that you can't, as a writer, go to somebody and say, hey, I want to write a book about, will you give me some money to write it? Right. Instead, you actually have to write the book and not know if anybody's going to ever want it, which makes it different for investors, because a true investor in a business like I would build is going to hold me accountable to dollars and cents that are spent and profits that are made. Whereas ultimately, for your situation, the most likely funding, if you don't have it yourself, is other like-minded people who are interested and passionate about what you're doing, that's what I was going to ask you. I hadn't thought about Kickstarter because I don't know that space too much, but I did think of like GoFundMe. But generally, as you kind of think through the first process, you're an independent game developer. You're by yourself. You've got a couple of buddies that are able to give you your brainstorming and help you with creative content and whatnot, but you're the one that's going to have to sit down there and all night, be pounding Red Bulls and writing code, right? Mm-hmm. And they're going to end up doing some of the artwork, some of the QA, some of the whatever. You're going to get everybody together. How much should that independent developer, that guy out there that's just trying to frickin' get the game built that he wants to build, assuming he has that network of support, where's he going to spend his money so that he has a clue? I mean, assets. I know you have to buy assets and stuff. Sometimes you might have to buy some equipment. You have to see, what is the number? Is it $1,000? Is it $5,000? How much money does that is going to initially have to be invested before that dev guy can get to the point of showing something, that vertical slice, to a GoFundMe or a Kickstarter or whatever, to say, hey guys, look at this cool game that I'm building, and would you guys like to put $10 in to get to it and raise enough money to get to that point? Otherwise, you're going, just as a business guy in me, if you go build your damn vertical slice, dude, but if I'm a publishing house and you bring it to me, I'm going to bend you over because I can.
Yeah.
Because which is why it's so important to address all of the social aspects and the things that you can do to get some credibility gained before you end up at a publishing house. Do you have any concept for viewers?
So the only thing that's important in this conversation, how much attention you can generate for your game. If you can generate that attention on your own because your game is so great that there are so many people interested in playing it that you don't even need a publisher, then you're in the best case scenario. You can just release the game yourself and make all the money, and you don't have to share it with anybody. But if you're in a situation where you need the help of that publisher, you need to keep the lights on, you need something to keep you funded for 6 more months while you finish this game, and you need a partner who has contacts at Nintendo so you can get on Switch, right? Because that's your real goal. You think that market is going to be what really drives the product. Then you might have to have that conversation with a publisher. And I know there are a lot of great publishers out there who won't screw you. There are some really awful ones, though, who will. So it's all about finding that right relationship that is going to take you from vertical slice demo to actual release product. I will say, in terms of initial funding from the publisher, one of my titles has never been funded by a publisher, so I've never had an exact offer. I'm just working off of things that I've heard from other colleagues in the industry and stuff. You could do it for $0. You could make a vertical slice of the game for nothing. People do this all the time in what are called game jams. Mm-hmm. These are weekend or week-long events where people in the game development community will get together for a weekend and basically lock themselves in a room for 48 hours or a week or however long the game jam is for, and you break up into teams and you say, all right, everybody make a game in 48 hours. It's got to be about this theme, and we're going to pick the best one. And there are really big game jam competitions that happen, and publishers go to these game jams and they look at the teams that are producing really great results, winning these game jams or near winning these game jams, or maybe that team just has a really good idea and the publisher sees the potential behind it. They'll go to that team and be like, hey, we'll fund you to continue development on this, right? But that game jam project could have been made in 48 hours for $0.
But that, in that case, is it they're giving you almost a writing prompt and saying, here, you got to go build this game? Are there similar type things, though? Like, I think of like, music industry like South by Southwest. In the movie industry, there's any number of annual festivals where an independent filmmaker can go show the thing. Are there similar things where you can go meet all the producers and they can see where you are and what you've done?
So I meant to mention earlier, as you were talking about the entertainment industry and stuff, the way that, from what I can tell, the way that the video games, or at least the the whole games industry is structured seems fairly similar to the way that the film industry is structured, right? Mm-hmm. Just in the sense that they're both creative mediums, and you have really passionate people who want to be a director or an actor or something, and so they'll act and they'll direct in their own homemade projects and student projects, and they'll release them at these Sundance film festivals, or I guess that one's pretty big, but other film festivals, local film festivals, regional film festivals, and they'll gain clout just by releasing, and eventually people will be talking about the movie. And if they get to a point where enough people are talking about this small indie film, then I don't know the exact process for the film industry, but it seems like maybe a larger studio would scoop that up and help them go to a wider distribution, right? And it's very similar in games in the sense that you kind of generate your own interest in it until someone notices you and picks you up, or if you really feel like you can do it all yourself, you do it all yourself. That's kind of like the dynamic.
So I guess we're about ready to wrap up our first podcast. So, again, like and subscribe. We're going to try and walk you through this whole process. Any comments, any questions, please leave them down in the comment section so that we can help answer the little nuances, because there's a million things going on. And as we go through this week in and week out, you'll see the progress, and you'll see, frankly, where we succeed and where we fail. The important thing that I've told Logan in this, and Keith and Jeremy and Reed, is this is an adventure, and you have to treat it as an adventure. I know everybody wants to make money, but I've met so many people in life that that's all they care about is making money, and as a result, they don't have any fun even when they do make money. This has got to be the adventure and the fun. The fun is creating it. Every day when I see you excited and talking physics, maths, and crap to me, it's exciting because I know how interested and excited you are, while then I'm watching, Keith come up with crazy pig devices, and it's fun to see everybody having a good time. And so I just want to stress to everybody, make sure that you don't, you're not so focused on the end result that you forget that the whole process of doing it is the fun part. And guess what? At the end of it, no one may play the game. You may fail. When we're at the end of the last podcast of this that we do on Pigs with Lasers, we may have 4 subscribers, right? It's just us. I don't know. Who knows? But that's not the point. The point is to put it out there, and hopefully we impart some good information that helps people create something almost as amazing as Pigs with Lasers!
Pigs with Lasers!
All right. See you next week, everybody.
Bye.